Timeshare came into the States like a big runaway truck with faulty brakes on an icy slope. But Timeshare is a great product because even though their experiences were not as nice as they are today in terms of management and product quality and maintenance, even with all that, they loved the product. As Crystal Dawn said, make the customer happy and everything else will follow. We've learned it.
On a legal standpoint, what were the initial challenges?
We had this situation where people were buying something they didn't know they wanted to buy and ended up loving something that was sold to them the wrong way. So we knew we were on the right track.
Well, there's over 10 million families in the United States alone. How do you see the industry going forward in the next few years?
Is it going to improve the way people can use their products?
This episode is brought to you by Hamakampai, the first vacation ownership project on the northern coast of Ecuador. Hi everyone, I'm Gaetan Babin, and welcome to Voices of Vacation Ownership. It's where we speak with leaders shaping the future of our industry. Now, each episode focuses on ideas that strengthen performance, enhance the owner experience, and move our industry forward. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Robert Webb. He's a partner at Baker Hostetler and unquestionably one of the most experienced legal minds in the vacation ownership industry. Rob has spent decades working across resort development, regulatory frameworks, and industry governance. And he's played a major role in shaping many of the legal structures our industry operates within today. As our industry evolves through technology, new ownership models, and changing consumer expectations, the legal framework must evolve with it. Robert, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Gaetan. I have never been called old in a nicer way than you just did.
You're still younger than I am, so I'll keep that record.
There you go.
Rob, we've known each other for a long time, and I just want to start by saying thank you so much for the work you've done, not only in the United States within the industry, but helping us out in Canada when issues come in with legislation. You're the first man I go to, and you've always been there to help.
Well, it's my great pleasure. I've been active in Canada for years, first in CRTA, when it was called CRTA, and now CRTA. And, you know, the U.S. government isn't being very friendly to Canada right now, but the timeshare and shared ownership industry, Canada is an incredibly valuable partner. We love Canadian developers and tourists, and I hope the government gets over itself soon. But until they do, we will always be here for you.
Well, you certainly have so far. But you've been involved in the industry, without going too much with your age, for decades, as I have. And you've shaped legislation and frameworks, but how has the legal foundation of vacation ownership changed? And how has it evolved over time since?
You know, it's interesting, Gaetan. I've also been very active in the European Association, which is now called RDO.
Yes.
But because changes in the European directives, the timeshare industry is just not that robust as it used to be there. But the one thing that Europe always had over the U.S. is the products were mostly trust-based or contract-based. In the U.S., they are moving away from all being deeded, but for various tax and regulatory reasons, they've all been deeded for years, which brought in the specter of the expense and delay of judicial foreclosure of financing, and just the general complication of creating a real estate regime, having an owners association, all the stuff you have to do for residential development. And frankly, most of it doesn't work well or smoothly or efficiently when you apply it to shared ownership. But, you know, the tax and accounting tails have wagged the development dog in the timeshare industry in the United States almost my entire career, and I started in 1980, so this is my 46th year.
Amazing. So I remember having
It's a long time.
long time, having great conversations when I first started in the industry 30 years ago with Crystal Dahan. And she's
What a
so
wonderful
much
woman.
incredible woman. And she so much inspired me. And when I asked her what was the most important thing in vacation ownership, because I was kind of starting in the industry and I would say, you know what, I need mentoring as much as I could. I was really picking my mentors.
You were down in Cayman, weren't you?
I came into Cayman in 2011, so that was way before it was. I was in British Columbia and Alberta in those days. And she said the most important thing is the owners. And she said since the very, very beginning when she was in her station wagon with John, and they were basically had these little file box. She says like they were milk carton with files, and
Exactly the way they started RCI.
The philosophy that she cared said it's always about the owners. But on a legal standpoint, what were the initial challenges that the industry had to challenge with? Because timeshare came in like a big truck in the States. And what was some of the challenge? And has it changed today, or is it still the same? But initially, how did it start?
Timeshare came into the States like a big runaway truck with faulty brakes on an icy slope.
Exactly.
But the amazing thing to me is that we survived a very, very bad start. We survived the collapse of the residential condominium business, which left partially and completely constructed but unsold condo units by the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds in Florida, Nevada, Arizona, California, and Hawaii. And timeshare primarily began, it's not the only reason, but timeshare primarily began as a workout for failed residential condominium projects. Prime, I remember in 1980, prime interest rate was 21%. You couldn't sell anything, but timeshare, breaking it up into 50 or 51 pieces, intellectually appealed as an alternative. We didn't know it really isn't a workout. It's a separate product. It's an excellent product, but like any product, you have to have well-capitalized developers. You have to have experienced managers. You have to have thoughtful lenders with reasonable underwriting standards. Instead, we had a lot of salespeople that fled the condo sales and land sales industry and didn't know how to sell timeshare, didn't even know what it was. Our lenders were savings and loans, where their loan officers got commissions based upon loans made, not loans performing. And there was very little regulation of the lenders, so money was flowing freely. The laws were non-existent or completely inadequate, and developers could, not all did, but could take consumer deposits and pay marketing expenses, not because they were all trying to cheat people. I don't think but a small portion really went out to cheat people, but because they had no idea how huge their sales and marketing expenses were going to be, how much it costs to sell something to somebody that did not wake up that morning thinking they wanted to buy it, and how much it costs then once you get them to come and see you to sell them and then keep them in the sale through rescission. Very, very difficult. So and the managers, they weren't even experienced hotel managers for the most part, much less managing a hotel with 2,500 owners instead of just one. So I'm saying all this because we survived it. And I still to this day shake my head because I was a brand new lawyer representing timeshare developers that were trying to do the right thing among a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing and didn't have any money. And I learned a lot. I learned an awful lot in self-defense. But timeshare is a great product because even though we didn't sell it well, even though our developers many of them did not have long-term staying power, some of the best ones were also doing business then and have proved that you didn't have to have all that regulation in order to make it, but we had to get rid of the bad players. And you know what? Once people bought, even though they were hotboxed, even though their experiences were not as nice as they are today in terms of management and product quality and maintenance, today it's fabulous. Even with all that, they loved the product. So we had this situation where people were buying something they didn't know they wanted to buy, and ended up loving something that was sold to them the wrong way. So we knew we were on the right track.
Well, the product has evolved. I mean, if you look at the initial timeshare model, you bought a week, you had it for life, and the thought was not only do you get to enjoy it, your kids will enjoy it, and your grandkids will enjoy it, and it's a lifetime. But I remember even in Canada back in 30 years, there was no rescission involved. So that was conducive to a lot of unethical sales practice that you bought, you're stuck with it. When you said very clearly that nobody ever went to a presentation, look at the product with intention to buy to start with. And I think government needed to get involved to protect the consumer by
absolutely.
But the rescission was probably the first act that government across Canada and the United States says you need to put a rescission act into this sales model.
You know, in 1983, the collision of consumer pressure, good developers demanding decent regulation, trying to get qualified lenders, quality lenders into the business, but they weren't protected in terms of what would happen in the event of defaults in their loans. So much needed to be addressed from a regulatory standpoint. Florida passed its first timeshare law in 1981, but it was a weak tea. It did some things. There was a lot of disclosure, but it only required a limited escrow, and they had a rescission period that was long, 15 days, but it was waivable. So part of that sales process was, everybody waived the rescission period, and so it wasn't providing any help. And so there was a meeting of the American Land Development Association, as ARTA was known then,
yes.
ALDA, and it was down in Pinellas County at one of the famous resorts there. And the Florida Timeshare Association, which we were part of and our clients were part of, also met there. And one of the members of the House of Representatives in Florida came down and waived a copy of legislation that had just been passed by the Florida legislature, putting enormous teeth into the 1983 law. No sweepstakes in 2 years, pre-approval of advertising, 10-day non-waivable rescission period, and an absolute requirement that not a dime could be taken out of escrow until the developer delivered everything that he promised to purchasers in the documents, during timeshare tours, in advertising even. It all had to be provided and ready for use as portrayed, or if you touched the money in escrow, it was a third-degree felony. And suddenly, the bad players had nowhere to run. The good players were happy, but the advertising rules went into effect July 1, and we couldn't comply with any of them. So we had to do emergency rules with the regulators, and that was the start of many things. It was the start of ARTA Florida. It was the start of outreach, communication, and a great eventual relationship between ARTA and the Florida regulators, and which helped us change the laws as needed to enable the maturity of our industry, and it helped us work together as competitors in the best interests of the people that Crystal DeHaan was absolutely right about from the beginning. The purchasers, the owners. RCI was a pioneer. There would not have been a timeshare industry without RCI and also II. But, Craig Nash was part of the traveling show that went around to regulators along with RCI and their counsel. And soon a few of our developers and their lawyers joined them. And, because of the exchange companies, we have an industry today. And Crystal DeHaan's role, Craig Nash's role, cannot be minimized, should never be forgotten.
On the stunning coast of Ecuador, something extraordinary awaits. The first registry collection project in South America. A destination where luxury meets nature. Where every sunset feels exclusive and every moment is designed to inspire. Welcome to Jama Kempe, where you always want to come back.
Well, you mentioned Craig Nash, and for our viewers that don't know the name, he was the leader of Interval International, which is the other exchange company, but his background is in law also.
He was a lawyer. He worked for a guy named Mark Langer, who did the first timeshare declaration in Florida, and I know because as a first-year associate, I used a Mark Langer declaration as the basis for the Orange Lake Country Club declaration.
Oh.
I was drafting something. I didn't know what a timeshare condo needed to look like, so I said, well, here's one over here. Let me look at it, and let me base my product on that. I learned a lot from Craig Nash over the years. They're an incredible guy.
Well, you're our subject, especially on the legal point of view of the industry is evolving, products are changing. I mean, we realize the importance of our association from Canada, United States, with Jason Gamble right now, which is a great leader for ARTA.
Yes.
AMDA ACRTA. The fact of associations working together, we're kind of picking up a little bit because it's the consumer, he decides or they decide where they want to go and end up. But as the product changes, is that a new nightmare on Rob Webb's desk, or is it, oh my God, here we go, we got a new model now coming up?
We call it new business.
New business.
So it's not a bad thing. But I'll tell you, I'm privileged to be a longtime officer and director of the American Resort Development Association. We're now known just by our acronym, ARTA. ARTA, CRTA, AMDA ACRTA. We all go to each other's conferences. You and I are at a GNEXT conference right now in Nashville, and everybody's here. We always work together and support each other because we know that by having a common goal of protecting consumers, enabling strong owners associations, and informing regulators about what our product's about, what our mission is, why we're good for their business, for their localities, we're great taxpayers, and we're great employers, and that mission for all of those sister associations has been so important, and your leadership in Canada has been a big part of that, and we're grateful for that.
Well, thank you. But it's obvious that the collaboration between operators, associations, vendors, that collaboration, that relationship is of extreme importance, because for an independent person getting into the business today and say, I can do this all on my own, it's probably the wrong way to go.
No, it is. I think many times our clients and members, and it's gotten where I can't really distinguish between the two because I'm Secretary and General Counsel of ARTA now, and I'm grateful that ARTA is willing to keep me in a leadership role. But we know that back in the 80s when Marriott got in the business in Florida in 1984, they would have loved to have just done a contract, a license, a right to use, and let the Marriott quality standards, the Marriott hotel brand, and all the growth and history and respect that those brands, Marriott and its sister brands in the hospitality industry command, that probably would have been enough to protect consumers. But we couldn't get past the regulatory, legal, tax, and accounting hurdles to doing that kind of product. And so we had to put together something that was much more expensive to operate, much more cumbersome. And, some developers wish they never had an owners association. But I'll tell you, dealing with an owners association, if you're doing things the right way, it can sometimes be a pain, but those are your customers. So making your customers happy, your customer is your best referral source. Your customer will buy more from you. Your customer is your borrower. And timeshare industry makes a third of its profit off the delta between their cost of funds and what they charge on their financing. So it's only smart to set your cap to make the customer happy, which is where you started all this discussion. As Crystal Dahan said, make the customer happy and everything else will follow. We've learned it, but we've had to go through a few trials and tribulations to get there.
Well, we've seen a lot of mergers in our time in the vacation ownership. I mean, when I first entered the forum, it was all independents. Now you've got the big brand that are big brands. They've taken over a lot of clubs and whatnot. As an association, we feel we really have to look at the small independents because they're on their own a lot of times. They don't have the budgets, they don't have the money, the resources
Absolutely.
to do it. So what would you recommend for those small independents so that they can stay in the flow and keep protecting their owners, especially when they're legacy resorts and they're sold out and they're just being operated by their HOAs, which is not sometimes aware of all the industry's changes and services that are now available to provide better service. Better experiences.
Absolutely. And ARTA hasn't forgotten about the little developers and HOAs by any means. But you're right, the big boys that dominate timeshare sales and development are U.S. public companies. They used to be owned by hotel brands, but now I think every one of them, or almost every one of them, is a separate public company from the hotel brand that birthed them, and they operate under a license to use the brand. But I think that's been good for the little guy because we have very informed public companies who have the highest disclosure standards, who have shareholders that they have to keep happy, and they have learned, we have learned, again, keeping the customer happy keeps your stock value up, keeps the analysts happy, keeps the regulators happy. That's the recipe for success. The little guys should come to CRTA meetings. They should come to ARTA meetings. ARTA has a partnership now with the Board Member Association, TBMA, and we have two regional seminars. I think we're still doing 2 each year. In which we bring board members in. We put scholarships for some of them that can't afford the travel or the registration, and we teach them about the laws and processes and services and best practices that their associations and their management companies should be following. I think it's one of the most important things that ARTA does. I know you attend those kinds of meetings as well and you come to ARTA meetings. I think the little guys should attend, and if they're not sure what's going to be offered them there or why they should, please, by all means, reach out to CRTA, reach out to ARTA, talk to, if you go to our websites, arta.org, is it CRTA.org?
Yes, it is. CanadianRTA.org.
CanadianRTA.org, and in the U.S. it's ARDA.org. And you'll find a rich source of information. You'll find the ways to get a hold of live people that can help you understand what these associations offer, what our conferences offer, information, training, relationships. It's priceless for the small independents. And by the way, the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And if we don't keep those small associations healthy, our product is not going to be totally healthy. And we know that too.
Yeah. Well, there's over 10 million families in the United States alone that benefit from our product, and we haven't seen a drop yet. So I think even with the influence of AI coming in the picture right now and so forth, how do you see, just to finish off, how do you see the industry going forward in the next few years?
Well, we have moved from, in the U.S., from an almost completely deeded single-site product through a multi-site, a central reservation system managed product into trust products. The laws have kind of grown with them, but AI is a wild card that we're all trying to catch up with.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we haven't been caught completely flat-footed, but I don't think most people, including my business, the law business, most big law firms are dedicating enormous resources to learning how to use AI to benefit our clients, including our shared ownership clients. But we are still moving fast, and I can't quite see the rim of the hill we got to climb to get there. So I think AI and questions surrounding what it's going to mean for our customers, our owners, our developers, and is it going to improve the way we sell timeshare? I think so. Is it going to improve the way people can use their products? I think so. And we're going to continue to see some more consolidation in the timeshare industry. We're going to see more melding together of the timeshare-based product, the exchange, and all the ancillary partner services that make up the very exciting shared ownership industry. The one thing I can tell you, I think there will always be an ARTA. I think there will always be a CRTA. We will always be working together with our sister associations in Mexico and elsewhere, and we will always be putting the customer first, just as we all learned from Crystal DeHaan a long time ago.
Rob, I can't thank you enough. Every time I get an opportunity to talk with you, and I sincerely mean it, I pick up something. You've been a great source of inspiration.
I'm going to buy you a drink later.
And I will take you on that. So I thank you, everybody, again, for taking time to watch our podcast this week. Having a guest like Rob Webb, I'm sure anybody can pick it up. If you have any comments, any observation, if you'd like to get some more information, just fill up on the comments below. And it was great talking to you. I'm looking forward to talk to you in the next podcast. Have a great day. This episode is brought to you by Hamakampai, the first vacation ownership project on the northern coast of Ecuador.